How Nigeria will grow up? The allowance they're supposed to give them, when they reach there, they cannot give them. Why Paralympic? Disabled, we no get hand, we no get leg, get good. What of the rest? Where they work out? We say everything now. If you give me 100,000 now, if I know they want 50,000 for you, I no go give me. And we have DG, we have all those things, and then I think they cause the problem.
The anguish in the voice of this sports facility manager, one of many who would rather not bear their minds on camera for fear of losing their jobs, substantiates the position of many Nigerians as far as our nation's sports management and administration is concerned. We started off on a good note. As far back as the pre-independence era, Nigerian athletes were already performing at their peaks, beating close rivals to emerge victorious. Notable are the likes of Emmanuel Ifajuna, who won gold in high jump during the Commonwealth Games of 1954, Hogan Kid Bassi, who sought to become the world featherweight boxing champion in 1957, and Dick Tiger, who won the middleweight title and later the world light heavyweight title. As the awareness of sports began to grow, there was a need to put a platform in place, one that would ensure a certain level of orderliness in the affairs of sports in the country. The National Sports Commission was established, and along with it came a litany of sports successes in the 1970s, 80s and 90s. Understanding the unifying power of sports, the government of the day moved to establish the National Sports Festival, a biannual event. At inception, it was designed primarily as a tool for bonding a gradually diverging people just coming out of a civil war. This would, however, precipitate into a higher calling. It would provide an avenue for the discovery of talents who represent Nigeria in international sporting meets. With this new development came the construction of many sporting facilities. The decline these facilities have suffered is nothing short of mind-boggling. Their present states can be best described as redundant.
I'm sitting amongst scattered seats right now. I remember vividly the only thing I used to cause any rancor around here and anything that was scattered was the crowd when they had to jump and jubilate when the goal was scored right there. "10, 15 years from now, how are we supposed to compete among our peers in the world? You know, we expect to win gold against an Usain Bolt, win, gold against maybe an Andy Murray in the Olympics, and it's terrible. I mean, it's very, very terrible."
Since the inception of the National Sports Festival, athletes representing states have carted away thousands of medals in individual and team sports. Sadly though, this has not had any bearing on their performance in international meets. Just as the recently concluded London 2012 Olympics, Nigeria failed to bag even a medal.
I think I will say that we have the talents here in Nigeria. We have a lot of them. even outside Nigeria, Nigerians that are even outside the country, they are all doing well. But the problem we have always had has been that administration to harness them together. And you cannot succeed without going back to the grassroots. And that is why we always clamoring, going back to the grassroots, you get these raw talents, and then you expose them to international limelight. And how do you do this? By making sure that you train the manpower. You train those that you know that are the coaches. You train the coaches. And with the coaches, in turn, impact that knowledge into the youths. And again, you make sure that you have facilities that are up to date. You know, most of the facilities are being renewed, or most of them are being updated in other countries in order to enhance performance. And if you don't follow the trend, you find out that you are backward. So these things are the things that we need. Most of our stadiums, most of our facilities are dated, and they cannot propel the athletes to greater performance, greater height. So you see that they are not being exposed to international competitive level. So that is one major problem that we have here.
Potentials in the land are underutilized, to say the least. Talents roam the streets of every state in the country, their endowments ceasing to be their strengths and taking the form of their weakness.
We don't blame the athletics, it's the body. Because we have different body, as in the football, we have different body that cover the different sport. And some people train to make up themselves, but they are nowhere to be found when they don't have a good manager, someone to manage them or to expose them. There is no competition apart from football, because most people source themselves to play football. Then other sport is more higher than the football in terms of the kits. Like if you see in the NBA, as in the basketball, their balls, the kits they use is more costly than the football, and that's why you can't find much people there. And there's no competition for them to, to improve themselves. So even the ones that are doing well, when it comes to Olympic, nobody will link them there to go to Olympic. We could look even in our judo and the rest of every phase keep on going every year by year. Every year we're supposed to have different phases going for the Olympic. But in Nigeria, every Olympic is different, it's the same phase that we know that is still there. And when we talk of athletics, we don't have tracks here that people can, practice and do well. If you go to Amembo, you look at the track, a professional athletics cannot use our place. Then when we talk of the weightlifting, we don't have, when you're training, you don't have food to eat. You can't do well. We don't have good swimming pool here. So how are we going to compete with the rest of the country that they have everything in places for themselves?
Is it that administrators care less about sports development, that they would allow the spread of this mismanagement cancer?
I, for one, have the philosophy of catching them young, picking them from the grassroots, and harnessing them together to then throw them into the limelight.
States like Lagos and Cross River are beginning to spearhead youth development. The Lagos State Commission on Sports was not available to comment, but its Cross River State counterpart shed light on their project.
Now, what this program does is that it combs the nooks and crannies of the state to discover talent from the tender age, some from 5 years up onto 12, 13, and we bring them on into the program. And this is a program that believes in the education of the children as well, because we don't believe that the child should just participate in sports and that is all. Should the child eventually be accidented, should the child eventually have a career-threatening injury and cannot compete or cannot earn from sports again, that child should be able to fall back on his or her education. So we're ensuring that they are put through schools, and that is actually the only way that you can succeed in developing sports. Sports and education must go hand in hand. So we are putting them through schools, and after the primary schools, we are taking them into what we call centers of sports excellence. We've identified 6 secondary schools across the state, 2 in each senatorial district, where we'll provide them with the necessary international standard sports facilities. Okay, so these children who leave primary school and are ready to go to secondary school are taken into these 6 centers of sports excellence. And as we discover more from even all the other secondary schools, we pull them into these centers of sports excellence, where we have not just the facilities, but trainers and coaches for them. So they continue to improve and their training continues at this level. Now we also organize competitions for them. We have the annual primary and secondary school athletics championship. So, and that is on local government basis. Now it doesn't mean that as they go to these centers of excellence, they compete for these schools or these local government areas alone. Wherever you were identified from, you will go back and compete for your local government. So the local governments are all on equal basis. It's not that you give an advantage to the one that you've pulled the good ones into the schools. They all go back to compete for the local government areas. And it doesn't stop at the secondary school level. When they progress from the secondary school and when they finish from the secondary school, we move them onto the tertiary level. We have programs with the University of Calabar and the Cross River State University of Technology, where we pull them into to continue with the education so that they can also graduate and have university degrees. And that way, they can actually be better sportsmen and women. And should their careers end, as I've said, they'll fall back on the education and be decent people in the society. That is what this program is doing at the moment. We are still at the early stages, which is why dominance at this moment is still at the school sports level. But as they continue to grow and mature, you will see them perform creditably. At the last National Sports Festival, a few of the medal winners for Cross River State were from secondary schools, and they are all products of this program. The fellow who won the gold medal in the pole vault is a secondary school boy, 16 years old. So you see that the future is quite bright for the program. The future is quite bright for the products and the students of the program.
Nigerians await what will become of this project in years to come. Meanwhile, which sports gets priority now?
That the standard of this area of the stadium is quite different from the standard that you have on the outside in terms of basketball side and the badminton. Possibly, is there a correlation to that? Is there an explanation to why more of the attention is focused on football and track and field?
Well, attention, you know, we are running a sport development program which entails so many sports. Even if they are not in place now, you know, we are hosting the National Sports Festival come 2014. Obviously, all go to that same standard. It's not that we are paying too much attention. You know, we are across Cross River State. It's with the limited cash. We try to touch one place or the other at a point. So our main focus before was the inside the stadium. We're going to touch every other sport just like we did in the main ball.
Because of the resources that we have, we cannot bite more than we can chew at any point in time. We have a plan in place to ensure that we develop all the sectors. As you may be aware, we're hosting the National Sports Festival next year. So whether we like it or not, we must provide the facilities for all the sports by 2014. And we're working on that. The gymnasium that you visited, I don't call it a gymnasium, it's just a knockdown facility for now, because we are going to build an ultra-modern indoor sports hall, which will comprise an international standard gymnasium before the sports festival. So the facilities you've seen for other sports that are not up to scratch, by this time next year, or by the time we're hosting the festival next year, there will be international standard facilities.
The solution to Nigeria's sporting problems is quite simply allowing Nigeria's diversity to begin to replicate strength in our sports. Concerted efforts must be put in place to target specific regions and the specialties they portend.
Concentrate on those areas that I know, yes, that we are conversant, the people in that area are conversant with, just like what you said, in the north. It's expected that they should be doing well in long distance races, while in the south here, things like swimming and maybe other athletes. So I think that, like the swimming, you know, wrestling, It's our culture. It's culture here in the South. So we ensure that we exploit the riverine areas. When you go to the rural areas, the riverine areas, you are going to get good swimmers, young, good swimmers. Some of them are in secondary schools, some of them are in the primaries, some of them are even in the pre-kindergarten. The only thing is that you start grooming them. Those ones that you see that are talented, you start grooming them. How do you get the facilities? You start working with the local swimmers, the villagers who you know that are very good. You send the coaches to the rural areas, and they liaise with the local people there who have ideas of the rivers and the waters, and then make it more hygienic. Areas are more hygienic for them to swim. It does not necessarily mean you bring them to the township for them to be swimming. Let them start from there, because they're used to there. From there, you now bring them to the city, and then already you are not giving them from the city. You now begin to expose them to the international facilities. So I think the most important thing is getting the facilities, and then going to the rural areas. Definitely, you will see good swimmers, and then bringing them, and again, trying to giving them, the type of incentives, because sports has to do with motivation. You have to motivate them, so that they forget about whatever thing that's happening in the villages, and then concentrate. You give them all that they need for them to bring the best in them. I think that's what you have to do. I know it's difficult, but you need to take the pains to do that. Those that are in wrestling too, you go to the rural areas, you go there, you get good wrestlers, young ones, then you send coaches to fish them out, and then bring them to the city, and then you expose them and you motivate them. Before you know it, as they are growing, they are improving. And these are the only ways you can get the real Olympic medalists, champions. So if you go to the north too, you look at those ones that have the ability to take on long distance races, have the endurance power, to move. You bring them and then bring them within that area, that vicination, so that they will, because that side is a hot area, so that by the time they go to contest in a humid area, they would have been doing very well. So these are the things you do. But while you do that, ensure that there is adequate motivation, because you're entirely taking them off any other thing in this world than that field of endeavor. And then again, you try to give them some competition, expose them to international competitions. First, you organize the local ones regularly, not you organize once a year. You organize regularly, because they say practice makes perfect. By the time they are practicing regularly, undergoing some competitive times, then they will get used to competition. And then you can send them abroad, where they could train, go for training tours, and then attend some competitions, international competitions, and then they get acquainted, get used to international facilities, and then come back again. Then they compare and contrast with what they have here. They will be improving.
I earnestly hope to see a change in the level of our sporting performances. I hope our athletes are provided with the enabling platform to develop and showcase their talents. I hope Nigeria will ultimately begin to build on an already abundant human potential. I hope, because hope is a good thing.